So before Carl starts, how about just briefly you all introduce yourselves and why you're here? How about that? And I'm going to start with Vanessa and Matthew.
Hi, I'm Vanessa. This is my husband, Matthew. We have 8 kids. One of our kids is a 12-year-old boy who struggles with reading, and he seems to be profoundly dyslexic in our estimation. And so he's been working with Angie for about a year, and it's been wonderful, but we are always looking for just encouragement and input, and that's why we're here.
Cool. Amy?
Good morning. I have 2 children. My older son, Jack, can you hear me? I guess.
Yep.
Okay. My older son, Jack, is a 6th grader, and I think also I would consider profoundly dyslexic. And just always curious to learn more that I can do to help him. So, thanks.
Wintry?
Good morning. I'm Wintry. I've got 2 daughters, and my older daughter is also very dyslexic, and I'm always looking, one, to understand it more, and then to see what I can do to help her, support her.
Okay. Patty?
Yeah, hi. I have 2 kids. I have Hazel, who is 11, and Ivy, who's 9. Hazel is dyslexic, and Ivy, we're pretty sure, is in that attention realm also. Both really bright, sweet kiddos. So I guess I'm looking, well, also I should mention I'm going to take the first workshop at the end of this month. Yeah, I'm excited. So yeah, I'm looking for, I guess, maybe thoughts on what you would have liked to see in your educational life that you didn't get. We homeschool and we kind of do some alternative things, so I want to hear all of the stuff you have to say.
Anna?
Hi. I have a middle daughter who just turned 19, and she was diagnosed with dyslexia last year. So when she was let's see. I think it was the beginning of his senior year in high school. And then I'm a teacher, and so I have had several students that struggle with dyslexia. And so I guess I'm very interested in knowing what to do with young people that might be from like 16 and up to try to help them.
Okay. And Melissa?
Hi. Am I still muted?
No.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay. So my name is Melissa. Angie and I are lifelong friends, and we are Davis facilitator colleagues. I'm really excited to hear from Carl because I've already spoken with him on the phone once, and I just know that his knowing it from the inside, and he has such a positive and humorous attitude, which is so important to bring creativity and humor to learning, because when we are relaxed and feeling good about ourselves, we learn better. So yeah, I just want to hear from the expert. Angie and I came to this as former teachers looking for better supports for our students, but I always question, is the best facilitator somebody who really does understand it from the inside, who has the same thinking style? So I'm constantly trying to expand my understanding of how broad and varied different thinking styles are.
Cool.
Okay. Carl?
Oh, my go. Okay, so my name's Carl Nigi. I'm originally from the UK, and I emigrated to Canada in '93. And I became I did the Davis program for myself at about age 40 in Ottawa. I moved to Ottawa in, I think, 2007 or something. And in 2009, I was struggling running my own business as a furniture maker. And basically, my dyslexia kept on coming up because if I now take 10 minutes to write an email, that would have taken me all morning in the past, right? And I would have probably been on the phone to my mother saying, "Hey, Mum, how do you spell the word enough?" Right? So yet again, right, for the 20,000th time, right, because it's a non-phonetical word, it doesn't play fair, and English is a non-phonetical language. However, people like to say it is, it just basically is not. So, or at least 50% of it is not. So it becomes very, very difficult to write and spell and think with English in particular. So I did a Davis program when I was, I think I turned 40, it was maybe 39 or 40. It took me about, probably about 8 months, maybe less, to do all my trigger words. I went from being a facilitator, from doing a program, and at the end of the week, I decided I was going to be a Davis facilitator, and I had about 6 months to get my trigger words done before I was going to fly down and do my first Davis program. And because I've been looking for answers just all of my life. And if you want to sort of get a deeper dive on what I'm doing and my own sort of experience, then you can go to my YouTube channel. And I think I have 13 videos there. There's probably a couple of hours worth of materials that you can go and look at. I think the longest one is about 40 minutes. And I think the shortest one is about 15. And, I'm asking people to look at it, share it, and just give it a thumbs up and subscribe, because that way it will just rise up in the conscious level. Really, so my experience was leaving school practically illiterate, from 16 to 40, knowing I couldn't read, or actually from about age 10 to about age 40, struggling with it, not being able to read, and all the emotional roller coaster that everybody goes through as a child and as an adult. But also knowing that I'm intelligent, could run a business, travel the world, buy a house, do all these other things. So there was this contradiction. If dyslexia is somehow brain damage, which is what I grew up with, or that's the ideology that everybody was promoting, then how come you can recognize that somebody's talking about you in this very condescending manner, and how come you can do all these other skillful things that people who can read and write can't do, right? We don't think if people can't play a musical instrument, we don't call them musically disabled. Okay? We don't call you socially inept. We don't call if you're not very good at telling jokes. Okay? It's only if you've got a certain type of characteristics, you have to start having certain problems that we then start saying you've got this disorder of the brain. But I've met people who are lineal thinking, who are not dyslexic, and you try teaching them woodwork and they just look like they've got a mental disorder. Don't know how to use tools, they can't tell left from right, and you're like, what? Like, how do you not figure out how this tool works? So, that I was questioning all of that as an adult. And then eventually when I found the Davis program, I actually found the book about 10 years before I did a Davis program. And I was really put off of it. I was put off of it by somebody who was doing a phonics program with me at the time. I think it was an Autumn Gillingham type thing. And they were using mixed methods, largely phonics though, and repetitive drill, and sort of breaking down the sounds and then teaching me all the rules. And they just weren't sticking. And it was really obvious that they weren't sticking. And I was 39 years old, I was like, give me a break. This isn't working here. I go to these classes and sit in rows on these tiny little chairs, and opposite me would be 3 or 4 kids with their parents looking very glum. And I remember one kid asking me, saying, well, what are you doing here? Are you a dad? And I said, no, I'm here to learn to read. And he sort of looked at me as if, my God, I'm going to be coming here all my life. Because here I was 32 or something, right? So I felt quite sorry for the tyke. And so I was always looking for something. And then eventually, when I moved to Ottawa, I found my sister gave me a little flyer for a Davis facilitator. I called them up, and she was just talking differently, just the way she was talking. And I think in video number 11 or 12, I talk about my own experience. These 3 questions that I used to ask everybody whenever I met anybody new who was dealing with my dyslexia. And they were really, first one was, is this phonics? And if they said yes, I was done. That was it. I was out. I had enough of it. The next one was, are you dyslexic yourself? Because I realized that there was something along the lines of my experience was clearly different from other people's experience. And then what was the cause of my problem? And she could answer all three of those questions, and particularly the last one, what is the root cause? That's what I was interested in. And the Davis program, when you really boil it down, when you reduce everything that everybody's doing, you think of it as a V shape, and you come right down to the very, very bottom of that V, and you say, well, what's that cause? And when you look at every other method that we use, every method in education, every private method, every medical method, everybody is saying there's some condition of your brain. We don't know what's that root cause. Okay. Neurologists are saying there's this idea of neurological diversity has now come along. And that's just a really fancy way of saying, well, we don't know. There's like 5, 6, 10, 20, 30, 100 different types of brains, and they all think differently. Well, you know, part of me goes, yeah, that's pretty obvious, right? How come we didn't think of that a long time ago? Because there are no two people on the planet that are the same. So why would we all think the same? You know, but there's this logic to the way people are really doing research in this area of learning disabilities. And it is a one-point perspective, but it's beginning to change over the decades. It's on this sort of verge of change now. So this whole idea of neurological diversity is the new thing, but that's just another way of saying we don't know. Right? Realistically, it's a really fancy way of saying we don't know what's causing this problem. So Ron's the only one who's ever been brave enough to say, I know what's causing root cause. It's disorientation. And when you understand the Davis method and you understand disorientation, then you realize that you start looking at people talking about brain scans, and you see that all these different areas of the brain are lighting up. They're sort of showing that there's confusion going on. So when people are talking about these different conditions, they just don't know about being disoriented and how it's affecting the brain. Okay? So that's the fundamental difference between what Ron is doing and what Davis facilitators are doing and what everyone else is doing. Okay? We're adjusting the root cause, and Ron is saying it's not a bad thing. It is a good thing that is horribly misunderstood. That's all. People have gone in the wrong direction. One of the ways I describe this to people living in Canada is to say, well, if you want to go to Nova Scotia, which is on the East Coast, you'd have to get in your car and you'd have to drive east, get on the highway and drive to the east. But you could get in your car and drive to the West Coast. And then you could get in a boat, sail across the Pacific, you could get to Japan, you could get in Korea, you could drive all across India, China, Europe, somewhere around Europe, you'd sort of go, oh, I'm lost. Okay? Or you can just get in your car and drive to the East Coast. So Ron's just gone the quickest, shortest way of getting there. And he's done it really by looking at his own thinking. And people say, oh, well, how can he do that? Well, that's the whole basis of psychotherapy. Right? So if somebody can't look at their own thinking, then the whole basis of psychotherapy is now out as just a science. Psychiatry is done, because the whole point of psychiatry is to teach somebody how to self-reflect on their own thinking. And that's what Ron did to a finite degree. He realized there was this confusion would happen. There was, once this confusion happened, there would be this, I used to describe it as this click whir, or this dyslexic moment where I become disoriented. And he chased that moment. He kept on looking at it, kept on figuring it out. And he's done a remarkable job. I mean, when you really chase the ideas and you think about what he's done, which is difficult to do if you're not a facilitator, because you're sort of on the surface. But as facilitators, we get all kinds of manuals and we sort of have to dig down. And then you start working with clients and you see, oh, there's a pattern here. These kids are all doing the same thing. And once you've worked with 20, 30, 40, 100 kids or adults, you start seeing the same pattern. And that's what he saw. So he just realized he could change his techniques. So they kept on working. I don't know how many hundreds of kids he worked with, but I think it was well over 1,000 people. So he took a really scientific approach. He said, well, what's my own experience? It's not damage, because sometimes I can read and sometimes I can't. So I can't have brain damage. So it has to be something that I'm doing. So then he started to look closer and closer and closer. Now, how he did it, I don't really know. I know I was trying myself. I know that some of the methods that I had experimented with myself as an adult had really worked. They're like Tai Chi was really helping for my focus. However, it was strengthening what we call our sports point, which comes out the top of our head. The sports point very close to the focus point, which is the back of our head. And I was strengthening this focus point. And I just realized I could focus and concentrate more. I also did a lot of meditation and a lot of mindful awareness training. And in meditation, there's certain techniques that allow you to focus and just become mindful. So I sort of got close with that as well. And I knew there was something with the alphabet. And I knew there was something with reading, but I didn't know what it was. I just knew there were some words I could not spell, and I just get really confused on. Now I realize they're trigger words. So I think in the big picture, what I've been saying here is Ron is talking about the root cause, and everyone else is off somewhere else in space talking about technique. Okay, and when you look at this problem from the outside in the big picture, that's what happens. What happens is it sort of splits in two directions when we talk about dyslexia, any type of learning disability, as people call it, right? One part is education, right? And all the things we do in education, and they don't know what's at root cause. And the other is all the psychological way that we talk about all these different things we can't do. And that's my mind. And nobody's, the only people that are really putting the two together is Ron. Everyone else is talking about either in this camp or this camp, and that's it. They're not cross-pollinating. And the people that are talking about the mind aren't really practicing what they're talking about with children. Right? So a psychologist will come along and say, well, this kid's got dyslexia, ADD, ADHD, whatever learning disability it is, and then they'll diagnose them, and then they'll prescribe something that's helpful, but they're not actually the one doing the work, so they don't really know whether it's helpful. Makes sense? Then the poor teacher's got to work with a method that is only actually half works for English.
I'm wondering if we should pause for a second. And that was an awesome, helpful explanation. And are there any questions right now? And I think you could stay on Carl's path, or you could ask a question that's slightly off the path that relates to your child.
What I've been trying to do is address all of your questions in one big answer. Okay, so one big answer is this: once you found Davis, you've got something to work with. So just keep doing more Davis. If you've just, how many of you have done the first Davis Dyslexia Correction Program? By a hand. So we've got 1, 2. That would be the reading program where they're really helping the child to read. You've all done that?
4 of them.
4 of them. Okay. So that's sort of step 1. Okay. Step 2 is what we call the attention mastery program. And that's concepts that really deal with cause and effect and really deal with the hyperactivity that's in ADD and ADHD. And I usually do program 1 first, the reading program, and then program 2 with about a 6-month gap. Once you've done that, then that's almost all you need to do, unless they're on the autistic spectrum. And if they're on the autistic spectrum, then you can go on and do the autistic work.
I want to make sure, I want to make sure parents who they're not feeling the as much success as they'd like to, or whatever. I want to make sure you guys have a chance to ask questions. So I won't name names, but here's your chance.
I think this is the right answer to your question. Sounds like you're looking for, was there anything else that helped other than Davis? Right? So everything else that I tried, think of it like a jigsaw puzzle. And that's all the traditional methods that we use. That's all the sort of psychotherapy we use, and all the wacky and the weird that's out there. Everything from diet to herbal remedies to everything, right? It's like those people have 1 or 2 pieces of the puzzle, and they're trying to fit it together, but they've got all the rest of the puzzle missing. What it really did for me is going around and said, well, that doesn't work, and that doesn't work, and that doesn't work, and that doesn't work, and that doesn't work. And I looked at all the things that didn't really work. So when I found Davis, I just filtered through everything. And when I heard what the lady was saying, I just, that's it, he's done it. And I was sort of convinced within the first day of doing a program. And I think, you know, it's not worth your time having your son filter through all those things. He doesn't need to articulate it to you. It's just when he gets stuck, when he gets disoriented in a class, he needs to be able to get his focus, he needs to be able to read at grade level, and then he needs to be able to think in sequences. If he can do those three things, he'll do well in school. He doesn't need to be able to articulate it to anybody else. That's a facilitator's job, right? That's Ron's job, that's my job, that's Angie's job, right? You yourself, he just needs to be able to focus when he wants to and needs to and has to, and needs to be able to read at grade level. And if he can do those two things simply and easily, then he's done.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm just gonna ask a piggyback question. Here's what Linda's question made me think of. So when you found Davis, you knew what you were looking for.
No, not well. I knew I couldn't read, as everyone else could.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I couldn't read a book. I knew I couldn't spell. I knew I was dyslexic. That's what we call dyslexia. I didn't really care what you called it. I just wanted to be able to read a book. That was it.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was looking for help. I didn't know.
You were looking for help, and you knew a bunch of other stuff didn't work. Yeah,
just because I've been trying it for 30 years.
Mm-hmm. I guess a question that I think that I'm asking on behalf of Linda and also not selfishly, but as a facilitator is with kids, or especially middle school kids. No offense to middle school kids, but I'm wondering about timing. And I mean, they know they're confused in class.
You say, when's the best place to start?
Yeah.
Time to really start is as soon as the kid realizes they've got a problem. It doesn't matter what age. It doesn't matter what the age is. Ron has 3 basic questions that we ask everybody. Okay. Do you have a problem? Right? Or are you finding something difficult? And if they say yes, you go, okay, what is that problem? Well, I can't focus. I get dizzy. I can't read, can't spell. And if they're unsure, you could say, well, I don't like schoolwork. Okay, you don't like school? What's the worst thing about school? Right? And you just keep on asking them, what's the worst? I don't like the class. Okay, what's the worst thing about the class? I don't like the teacher. Okay, what's the worst thing about the teacher? She confuses me. Oh, so the reason you don't like school is because you get confused? What's the worst thing about being confused? Oh, I can't do my work. Oh, so that's your problem. You can't do your work? All right. Would you like to be able to do your work? Would you not like to be confused? Would you like to be able to focus? Would you like it if you could get along with the teacher? Oh, yes, great. I have something that I think would work. Would you like me to try? So they've just got to know they've got a problem. They've got to know roughly what it is. And then they've got to want to not have that problem. And I've met 6-year-olds who can articulate that. Okay? They're sheepish, they're nervous, but once you relax and play with them and they go, yeah, they'll start saying what they can't do.
Carl, I know I've heard this a million times, but can you please say the first question you ask, and various ways of, do you know you have a problem?
Yeah, the first question, Ron used to do this. Some people have difficulty with the word a problem, right? So, because, well, I don't have a problem, right?
Yeah.
It's the teacher, she's a problem, or he's a problem, right? Or my mum's a problem, right? So problem now is a heavy word where it didn't used to be. So you could replace it with, but it's basically, do you have a problem? What is that problem? And would you like to not have it? Would you like to not have that problem? Ron also used to say, if that doesn't work, you could say, well, what would your life look like if you didn't have that problem? And I've had kids say, oh, I'd just be able to sit back on Sunday afternoon and read a book. Oh, I'd be able to turn my homework on time. Oh, my parents would get off my back. Oh, okay. So then we always say, well, I have something that I think would work. Would you like me to try? And if they say yes to that, then you're on for a program. Most of the kids coming to see me have already had what we call a psych ed assessment, which is psychological educational assessment, which is just fancy words for some kind of a learning disability. And any of the 70 different types of learning disabilities that there are, from our point of view as Davis facilitators, that's just a fancy way of saying disorientation. So it's disorientation 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 70. So when somebody says to me, so my website is Overcoming Dyslexia. So if somebody says to me, well, my son doesn't have dyslexia, he has ADHD. I'll say, well, that's just code for disorientation. Someone says, my daughter has dysgraphia. Say, okay, that's just code for her disorientation is showing up in her handwriting. So, somebody has auditory processing disorder, right? That's disorientation showing up with their hearing. That's what that is.
I'd like to return to something. You mentioned that Tai Chi had helped you, with focus, that it didn't necessarily solve all of the reading issues, but it did bring you into better clarity, better focus. And I'm thinking about Linda's question, like, obviously the better someone does understand their problem and the more clarity of mind they have, then the more gains that they will make in their learning. Long before I heard of Davis, I used to recommend to families to have their children do Taekwondo when they showed, particularly, I don't care, I don't like those labels, but ADD, ADHD, kids who had too much energy, kids who struggled with focus, like that part made sense to me, that teaching a person to find calm and to find focus and to control their body and to have like a hierarchical skill level that they're building up and gaining confidence and, feeling good about themselves, like all those things just totally made sense to me. So I'm wondering do you ever recommend to families whose children do struggle with focus, doing any of those other types of things, because it can kind of add to the clarity that can come from Davis?
I think there's something really great that comes from martial arts. That's very helpful. But the difference between martial arts, the difference between Tai Chi and Davis is Tai Chi, after about 8 years, it began to work with my focus, right? After about 8 minutes, it began to work with my focus. It basically literally takes us on the first day of a program when once we've done an assessment with a client, once they're in front of us, I say, good morning, here's the washroom, here's your drinks, here's your snacks, here's how we're going to work today. So it's about a 15-minute intro or a 10-minute intro to settle the kid down. Mom says goodbye, dad says goodbye. Right, first thing we're going to do is deal with your focus. 30 minutes later, they're reading better. Literally 30 minutes later, I've got them oriented. That takes anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. They've read. I've then gone and done reading for disorientation. Okay, all of that's happened in the first hour. And in the first hour, their reading's gone from, they're in grade 6, they're in grade 4, they're reading at grade 4, it bumped up to grade 5, grade 6, sometimes even higher in the first hour. So what took me 8 years over here to help my focus, took me a week over here. Wow. Right. So the answer is, if you're going to spend your money, I would do Davis first. Because it also takes somebody who I think understands their focus within that martial art to be able to teach it. And that's much harder to find. But again, I think martial arts are great for all the reasons that they're good for kids, and but find a good one who's not into the macho stuff, one who's actually teach them, all the good things. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Other parents want to chime in and ask some questions?
Sure, yeah. So I hope this isn't too specific for the group, but our son, he's 12. He really can't read at all. He started working with Angie about a year ago, and he went through the reading program with her, and immediately the improvements we saw were he was able to identify the alphabet, which he was not able to do before, and his penmanship improved a lot. He was very motivated to go through his trigger words, and he got those done in about a year and felt a huge sense of accomplishment in getting through that list. However, as after he finished, I kind of went back through the list with him, and he couldn't read or identify any of the words, and is now not motivated to go through them anymore. Like, he feels like, I did that, I accomplished what I was supposed to accomplish. And even though he didn't get the accomplishment of being able to read, he got the accomplishment of finishing. And now we're sort of stuck. Like, I see the Davis method and I see, okay, this works, the focus works, but I'm having trouble getting him to keep going with it.
Has he had any, was he diagnosed? Did he have a psych ed assessment?
No, no, he didn't. No, so he's been homeschooled, so he's only really worked with me, yeah.
Okay, so off the top of my head, so he's done all his trigger words. Did you do Koosh balls every day, 2 or 3 times a day for the first 3 months?
No.
Okay,
we did it right before he would work on his words.
Okay, is he hyperactive or hypoactive? Does he go hyper, meaning very fast, or does he go very slow?
No.
Long answers. Okay, so, but he's done his trigger. Did he read every day?
Yes.
After the program? Read every day after the program. And,
well, I mean, he would sit down with something to read. I would pretty much read it to him. He wasn't able to read really, so we would work on something every day.
Okay, so he sounds like he's severely dyslexic. Okay,
I think so,
might
yes.
even be on the ADHD or AD, meaning he could be either hypoactive and internally he's going very slow. Does he, when you ask him a question, does he take a long time to answer it and then sort of peter out, not really answer it?
No, he doesn't seem to be able, he doesn't seem to do that. He seems to be able to converse at a normal rate.
Like other kids?
Yeah.
Is he daydreamy?
Yes.
You're a very daydreamy kid?
Yes.
Daydreamy kid, okay. So, and he's not hyperactive?
No.
So, if you didn't, so the idea of Koosh balls, you might want to revisit Koosh balls.
Okay.
Okay, maybe go back with Angie, do revisit Koosh balls, revisit balancing, just make sure everything's good with fine tuning. And then do Koosh balls 2 or 3 times a day.
Okay.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Okay.
What I usually recommend is that clients do Koosh balls because that's his focus. So if he's only doing it when he does trigger words and he only does it for a couple of minutes and he doesn't do it the rest of the day, then he's not practicing using focusing.
Okay.
Right? And if he's not practicing that focus, it's not becoming second nature. Right? It's becoming one of those things he does only when he does trigger words.
I see. Okay.
If he was an absolute non-reader and started from no reading whatsoever, so he's essentially illiterate when he was 12, then you are teaching him to read as well.
Right.
So I would go back and use the methods, the sweep spell, the spell reading and the sweep spell, and start with words that do play fair. So actually use phonological methods to sound out a word. Cat, right? The dog. So if you can read those basic words, just start on a very low level and just start bringing him up and read with him every day and do Koosh with him every day because he's not practicing his focus probably. Right. The other thing that might be happening, have you done the second program, the attention mastery program?
No, we have not. No.
Okay, so that would be a good idea to do because that's cause and effect. And the whole idea of the attention mastery program is that the child doesn't recognize that they are at cause for their dyslexia. And if they use their focus, they can read. If they don't use their focus, they won't read.
Right. Okay.
So he's at cause. He has to realize that he's doing something, which is using his tools that helps him do his schoolwork. And when he doesn't use his tools, he can't do his homework. When he does use his tools, he can do his homework. That gets taught in the cause and effect program, and it can't get really taught. It does get taught in the first program, but it's not actually sort of laid out as cause and effect. Is his bedroom really messy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he doesn't understand order versus disorder. He doesn't understand the 5 sequences that there are in life. So you want to do it.
His fish tank is messy.
And me?
His fish tank is messy.
Everything's messy. Yes. So, yeah, he's basically on the ADHD spectrum. The only other thing that could potentially be is that he could be on the autistic spectrum. Okay, and undiagnosed, he could be very high functioning autistic. And then then you can go and do the Davis Autism Program or Concepts for Life, even if he's not. So the way this builds simplistically is there's the first reading Davis program, and that's for people who are just dyslexic. People who are more ADHD, they disorient more. So we've got second step, which is the Attention Mastery Program. I recommend both of my clients do both because they really get a good bang for their buck, right? And what Ron was trying to do is actually deal with his autism over here, okay, which is more severe disorientation. And the Attention Mastery Program is part of the autism program that he took out and gave to people who were on the ADHD spectrum. Okay? A lot of dyslexics, because they're disoriented, they don't learn the life lessons of time. And when we don't learn the life lessons of time, we don't learn the 5 sequences, which is size, amount, time, and the lessons that come from time, arbitrary order, and the order of importance. Now, the life lessons of time are what really trip up ADD kids and more severely dyslexic kids, because they don't realize that time is a measurement of change in relation to a standard. Okay. So they don't realize that things change, and they don't realize that they're at the cause of that change. Right? They don't realize when they put the coffee cup down on the counter and walk away from it, that they're the ones that made that mess, and that they need to create order and put it away in the dishwasher. Okay. If he doesn't understand those concepts, people are sort of peel that off and say that's ADHD, but it's also there because of being disoriented. That does affect their academic skills, because they think, well, I don't have to do my homework because it's not important to me. Right?
I see. Okay.
So I would go back to the basics with the reading stuff, and then I would seriously consider doing an Attention Mastery Program.
Okay.
That's what I would.
Can I add on to that? Because I've been doing this back and forth with Vanessa and Matthew and Benjamin. Carl, how do you address, like, I imagine Benjamin must have some frustration or some emotion around this. And how do you address that?
Again, using the tools, release, checking his dial, checking his focus, checking his doing a release. So if he's getting frustrated in the moment, well, do a release, dial it down. Did that make your mind's eye move? So if somebody, I mean, realistically, to give you advice on your son, I'd want to sit down with you for a long time, an hour or so, sit down with your son, and you know, Angie can do that with you. Basically, you probably just need more programs. If he's true, is he still not reading after he's done all his trigger words?
He's still not reading. That's correct.
Any grade level?
No.
Kindergarten at best.
Yeah, he can pick out a few words here and there, but no. Yeah, really, I think no grade level of reading.
All right.
High competency, though, in a lot of other things, as you've shared. I mean, very interested in woodworking, very interested in, I mean, he can put things together from IKEA faster than I can. Yeah. Very sociable, but like he doesn't clean his room. It's just a disaster, and forgets that he does it, and he can't read, but he seems to really want to.
Okay. So I mean, you're getting into really, yeah, I can't do for you what you need to do, right? So you've either got to work more with Angie and have her figure it out. I don't mind helping Angie to do it, or I could consult with you as well. But you know, you're basically Angie's client, and I don't mind giving some advice if I can.
No ego here.
But you're really
call Carl if you want to call Carl.
Okay, I think really what you're into is more Davis program. You're into the second attention mastery program, and you might even want to think about talking to an autistic facilitator as well. I don't know if Angie has done that or is qualified to do that.
We have a local, our mentor and the third person who does Davis locally, she's very skilled and has been doing that for many years.
Okay, what's her name? Who's that?
Nikki, she goes by Nikki Cates, C-A-T-E-S.
Thank you.
So I would sit down, I would have a phone call conversation with Angie, maybe with her. You're welcome to, you know, I don't mind doing something with you as well. If you have somebody who does Davis autism in that area, he may not be autistic, he just might need more of these, what we call concepts. And an autistic facilitator could help you with that. Angie could certainly help with the attention mastery program. However, an autistic facilitator can put some sort of finishing touches on it that Angie can't if she's not an autistic facilitator, because she's just got the other lady's got to have more tools.
She's also doing this.
His interest is there. If he wants to learn to read, that's really the big thing. Okay, so then you might just have to go back to the basics and actually teach him to read. It sounds like you've got a slightly unusual thing going on. Most of the kids coming to see us are either very young and they can't read, or they're 8, 9, 10 and they're reading a year, 2 years below their grade level. But to have someone who's 12 who's not reading, that's unusual. That's the sort of the worst I've ever had is a 14-year-old who was reading at grade 2. He had some basic reading skills, but I've never had anyone who is 12 completely illiterate, almost like a young learner's thing going on. So you probably need more time to either talk with a facilitator and dig down on it. And I would want to see the kid. That's one of the reasons why I'm saying try to go to somebody locally, because I literally want to get my hands on the kid to figure out what was going on with him.
Right.
Yeah.
Understand. Yeah.
One other question. I'm sorry if I'm taking the time. I just have wanted to ask this question for a long time.
Go for it.
Well, just particularly as a father watching a son who needs skills to enter the world. I mean, how is he going to take a driver's test? How is he going to get a job? The question that Vanessa and I have talked about, is there at some point I just need to teach him coping skills? Son, you just need to know that you don't know how to take this test, and I need to help you take this test. He needs to get a job. He probably wants to take a family. He probably wants to do all those things. And if he doesn't do it, and I understand what you're saying, Carl, that we do it a particular way in Western civilization, but we do it a particular way in Western civilization.
I got an answer for your question. Another layer of problem, and the attention mastery program deals with those concepts and those ideas. And most dyslexics are stuck on this. We only label the really severe ones, ADHD, ADD, but most kids who have got any type of learning disability, they struggle with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. That's helpful.
Thank you.
I would just go and do that. And I recommend that all my clients do both programs, usually about 6 months in between.
Okay.
Yeah. It's rather a lot. You're all looking a bit.
It's also things like he picks up a ball and he takes the baseball bat and he hits it over the neighbor's fence, and you're going, do you realize you just hit all of the neighbor's yard? Do you realize you could have hurt somebody? And when you question on him, he's certainly remorseful, but it doesn't seem to cross the cause and effect aspect of it. It doesn't seem to cross his wavelength.
Yeah, because he's not at cause. When you're disoriented, right, you're not at cause. Someone else is always at cause. Okay, and the way you can really see it is when you think of little kids who play sort of cops and robbers or something, right? They shoot each other, bang, falls down, and then jumps back up, okay. I didn't really get shot. If you have somebody really getting shot, there's a big hole in them and blood, and it's a real, scare the living daylights out of kids, right? Mm-hmm. So they'll play cops and robbers and shoot each other, right? And they see dragons, and they're in that fantastical world, and there's no actual cause and effect in your consciousness when you're daydreaming. Mm-hmm. So the people that are feeling a bit shocked on this one are a bit like, what's this guy talking about? Think of it this way: if you won $50 million, right? What would you do? You'd all start fantasizing about what you would do, right? Not fantasizing about, I take this holiday, I set up this school, I'd do this, I'd do that. That is using your imagination to fantasize. But when somebody's disoriented, they access that fantastical world. They live in it. And there's no cause and effect in that fantastical world, because you can, in your imagination, you can play cops and robbers, you can shoot somebody, and there's no consequence. So when they hit the ball or they punch the person in the classroom, they don't know why they're outside the headmaster's office, because they genuinely, they don't get it. They don't understand this concept. Mm-hmm. And I knew that from my own life as an adult. I knew really big consequences. I knew if I walked in up to a policeman and punched him, I'd be go to prison, right? I came from the tough side of the track, so I understood those big ones. But the really small social ones that accumulated and turned into a big idea, I didn't get. I missed them.
And I will say, having gone through the Davis levels of training, this was, for me, one of the hardest concepts to really grasp, is because when I think about common sense, I think about, the physical world, gravity, things that we can all see and experience. And so I would think, well, how could other people not have absorbed these lessons from the tangible, practical world around them? Because I don't have the kind of brain that can really create these amazing mental schema and that are real to me. That's what happens, right, Carl? Like when people are creating these, it's very real to them. Some people see it as movies. It's experienced differently. I know there's not any one way to describe it, but that's a hard concept for someone who doesn't think that way to imagine. Like, what is this other thinking brain? What is their experience of life? Because it's so different. And it just seems like, how can you not see the apple fall out of the tree? How can you not see that you hit the ball and it went in the neighbors? It might have hit their cat. It might have broken a vase.
I'll give you a really good example, because everyone's done this one. A really good example of how it does work is everybody has got in their car in the morning, driven somewhere, driven to work or driven somewhere where they've driven a bunch of times, arrive there and go, oh my God, how did I get here?
Right.
And you've taken a half-hour drive on the highway going at 100 kilometers an hour, and you get there and go, how did I just get here? Now, it's probably more common for somebody who's disoriented. Right. If you're just in your discursive thinking, worrying about something, you're not here in the real world. And we've all done that. Right. That's what meditation is about, right? Getting yourself in the real world. That's why we're all doing yoga and meditation and mindful things, to try to bring ourselves into reality.
Right. That's very helpful. But one of the things that Vanessa says to Benjamin is, do people, I don't know if this is helpful.
Yeah, are you acting in a way where people want you to be where you are? Like I think I'm trying to explain consequences, but I just don't know how to do that.
It sounds like I would talk to the autistic facilitator close to you as well.
All right.
And I talk to them, and between her and Angie, figure out what your best course of action is, because it sounds like you've got more going on, and that's the type of person I'd want to get my hands on them to really give you advice, because it's a very personal thing, right?
And the beautiful way that it is achieved is by the person modeling not just generic concepts, not just the idea of the concepts, but life stories from that person. Like Benjamin would build models of him hitting the ball with the bat. So it's like the person creates it with their me, and it becomes much more real, and they can see the tableau, they can see the full scenario. So that's, I think, a lot where the light bulbs start turning on, is when they create their own, something they've lived through themselves, but really to dial it back to the cause and effect, the before and the after.
I'm going to say, so Vanessa and Matthew, why don't we make sure and connect within the week, and we'll kind of debrief all this stuff, and let's make a course of action for Benjamin and stuff. Patty.
I would also, I think to end with you guys, I would also really start with taking him back to basics as well. You want to be doing cooch ball to like really checking that his focus is okay, that he can see it, that he's using it every day by doing cooch balls. And you'll probably see some help there.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. We'll email each other and set up a time. Okay. Amy or Wincy or Anna or Patty or Linda, there's been so much said. Is there anything, do you have anything rising to the top? Linda?
Let's start tomorrow. So how long do you want to wait? He's been in school for, what, 7 years? Can't read at grade level. That's not the school's fault. Look at the way we teach children to read. It's an antiquated method that's about 5,000 years old, and it's been perfected by a very small group of people for about 5,000 years. And then the last 150 years, we've been giving it to everybody. And what we're learning is it doesn't work very well for everybody. And that's when you really boil it down. So I would literally, if your son can't read a book simply and easily at grade level, if he's had a psych ed, has he had a psych ed assessment or hyperactivity? So the last one is, if you got 5 things, if you've got any one of those things going on, of those things, because that's the school system, that's the way we teach people to learn and to read and to go through school. All of those indicators are saying your child doesn't fit in this system. Okay. And if we're really honest and actually generous to educators, they've been given a problem that they can't fix. Probably half of the teachers would sign up to do Davis and learn to do it because they desperately want to help kids, but they just don't know about this stuck thing called being disoriented. So from my point of view, I would go tomorrow. I won't wait another week. Does that answer your question? The last video I made, video number 13 on my YouTube channel, I talk about the paradigm of a learning disability and that parents get stuck. We're all stuck in the current paradigm of a learning disability. And I believe it's a negative one. It's a negative paradigm. And that's not because people are negative in it, it's because it generates negative feelings. And when we get stuck in that paradigm, we go around 3 things. We go around fight, flight, or freeze, and we go round and round and round. We get stuck. And the only way of getting out is to cut it and go do something different. Just talk to your son and let them do what they do. And if they feel that your son is ready, I would do it. Obviously, financially, if you can't do it, that's another whole ball of wax. But if you financially can do it, I would just take them to a facilitator and have them figure out whether he's ready or not. Because they'll tell you, I won't work with kids who aren't ready. The thing that parents don't realize, I'm not a parent, so I don't want to patronize any parent, but parents, that fight, flight, or freeze gives parents tunnel vision. Okay, they just get stuck in that tunnel vision, and that's what fear does to everybody. And the only way you're really going to be able to put that down and let go of it is, in my opinion, is if we deal with the root cause. And that's what Davis is dealing with. It's dealing with the root cause. It's not teaching a child to read. It's not teaching a child maths. It's teaching it, well, maths, yes, but not the reading bit. We do use reading and we do help them read, but we're really teaching the child. We're removing that bit barrier that is stopping them from learning what we're doing. So good luck.
Sorry, even after a year, I'm not very good at using Zoom.
I don't really have too much to say except thank you. This was super interesting and kind of just reinforces what we've been working on and why we need to keep working on it. And yeah, so I just wanted to say thank you. And then I'm also just curious if those are all of your books in the background. Like, you enjoy reading now? And
oh yeah, I always did. I just couldn't do it properly. Yeah. I think when I did the Davis program, I would say I was semi-literate. I could probably read at about it because of the enjoyment factor. If I was really enjoyed it, then I would get into it, and my reading would get better. But if it was something really boring, then I'd be just useless. Sure. So it's like I was illiterate again. So it's very bizarre in that sense.
We are living in a time when there's so much technology available. Yeah. Jack does a lot of audiobooks.
Yeah.
Part of me is like, that feels sort of like you should be practicing. But it would take him forever to get through something. So the audiobooks like keeps up with his speed or his comprehension or something. So it's always just sort of been a balance of like, how much audiobook / practice with that. So that's not that's not wrong, right?
Nothing's wrong. Okay. But really nothing is wrong with Davis. I always tell parents, there's no blame in dyslexia. Okay. Whatever you were doing in the past, draw a line under it. And then whatever comes after you've done the Davis program, that's what you focus on. Apologize if you need to apologize. Some parents like to say, look, I'm really sorry, kiddo, I was doing the best I could. And I found Davis last week. So now we're doing Davis, right? And you're still using, remember that Davis is really a vehicle that you're going to use other methods as well. And if there's a word that plays fair with phonics, use it, right? If there's some little spelling game that works well and they can picture it and they can use it, but when it stops working, go back to the Davis and it will work. Okay? I think there's a bit of controversy maybe with Davis facilitators about audiobooks. So my recommendation is this. I say, we've been spending a whole week trying to put all of your senses of sight, sound, touch, taste, smell in the same place at the same time. And if you're listening to a book when you're trying to read the book at the same time, you are splitting your focus. Right? Because you're listening and you're reading, and your listening is getting pulled this way and you're this way. So if you just want to listen to an audiobook, go ahead, listen to it. Sit back, lie in bed, listen to Harry Potter, go for it.
Okay.
But then the rest of the time, we need to get your skills at reading. We need to get these weak, I think of my focus like a weak muscle. We need to get this muscle really strong. And when we need to do like strong muscles, we need to do push-ups and eat the right food. So cooch balls and looking at our focus, that's the right food. That's exercising this muscle. And yes, it is slow and it is boring at first. And however, you will get better and better and better. So we're going to pick a book. We're going to do 5-10 minutes of reading using 3 reading exercises, anywhere from 3 to 5 days a week.
Okay.
And then go listen to an audiobook afterwards. You can listen to the same audiobook. So if it was Harry Potter, say, because I know that's the only book I know that's audio and reading, right? Or any audio, but I would say listen to it for a little while, right? And then read a page, listen to a page, read a page, listen to a page, read a page if it makes it quicker. But yeah, not listen and follow along. So all they do is listen.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Wintry or Patty or Anna, how are you guys doing? Good?
Good. No questions, but this has been wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's a lot throwing at you.
Same, no questions for me, but I really appreciate the depth of information.
Good. You're going to get all of this again when you do your training.
Yeah.
You're going to get it slightly differently from whoever you get your training from. So good for you for doing it. We need facilitators.
Great. I can't wait.
Yeah.
There's a lot to learn.
Yeah. What, Anna?
No, I was just saying that there's a lot to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking that sort of all roads lead to Davis. And I was just thinking if there was anything I could use to think about in my students who I don't think would be able to afford a Davis program. So I don't know if there are any other ways or any alternatives or.
So Anna,
yeah,
meet Patty. Okay. And if Patty decides to go through it, she will need practice people. And that is how I met Wintry. Wintry was very generous when I called her on the phone and said, I'm doing this thing, and I think your daughter would be great. And she listened, and yeah, and Aoife I learned a lot from her. And anyway, so, and that's actually one little thing. I am so curious in the Davis sort of network. There's always people in training and that need practice clients. And then there's always people out there who can't afford it and need a person. And I'm sort of curious how to make them know about each other. That's kind of something on my mind. But anyway.
There is something you can do, Anna. There is something you can do. The thing you can do is you can go and check out DLS, which is Davis Learning Strategies for Teachers, take into the classroom, because we need to get it in the classroom. So that's the first thing you can do. And some of the tools are there. There may not be somebody in your area who can support you, but it's worth looking at because there may be. So those are some of the tools you can take in the classroom. But that's, I don't know enough about to tell you whether it's a good fit for you or not, but I would check that out. And you can do it online now because of COVID. So they are having training modules
this summer.
For that. Yeah, I think they're having one soon. So you could at least just go and do the first step and learn some of it. The next thing is you can train as a Davis facilitator. You've got really transferable skills. You're an educator. You're going to probably eventually give up being a teacher at some point. And what else are you going to do with your life? So, you know,
it's logical retirement option.
I can think about a few things, but that's okay.
And you know, I think if you're working, depends what you're doing. If you're sort of a regular teacher, just teaching regular classes, and you know, and it's a good school and it's a good living, and you're not really interested in this whole learning disability aspect, then I would just recommend, you know, there isn't anything you can do, right? However, if you are interested in pursuing how you can get Davis in the school system, then that's DLS. And if you're really interested in really helping kids with learning disabilities, then there's training as a Davis facilitator. And that's going to do it. There isn't anything in school. There isn't anything in school.
The other thing to know, though, is that the book, The Gift of Dyslexia, is out there. You can buy used copies online or at Powell's. And obviously, for a student, do you teach high school, Anna? Is that what I understood you to say? Yeah. So for a student to do it, they need a support person. They need a parent or a family friend or a mentor who, you know, is just basically skilled enough to read the book and be a little bit above them in their comprehension of what's happening. But Ronald Davis wanted it to be available to people to do. So homeschooling families often do it. They don't always hire a facilitator. That being said, facilitators obviously have a much deeper, you know, understanding and can offer extra pieces to it. But some people do it on their own outside of the, you know, studio, the professional setting, and have success with it. So if it was a student who was motivated and had a helper person who was motivated, they could get a lot out of it.
So one of the things a friend told me once, he said, teachers are the biggest plagiaristic people on the planet. They do not observe copyrights. They will beg, borrow, and steal anything to help their kids. And that's a good thing, right? That's a really good thing. Unfortunately, there isn't anything you can really sort of do that with Davis. You've either got to go do DLS, and then there'll be some tools you can use. And I don't know how far they will go in your particular school, because your skills got to be on you know, that's something you can explore on your own, or you can really, there isn't anything you can just take from Davis and copy and just photocopy it and do it quickly with kids, and it will help. It's a process that person's got to go through. Yeah. So don't know if that helps. But we need teachers. We need teachers to do it. We really do, because you know that's really where I suppose the tire is meeting the road, right? Is in that classroom situation, and no, not everyone can afford it. And in order for it to really make a big change in the world, it needs to be in the school systems, because in Western countries, English-speaking countries, we have an average over the last 34 years of 20% illiteracy. Another 20% is semi-literate, meaning way below grade level. About 33% of the population in Canada can read at grade 10, and only about 27% of the population can read at grade 12 or above. And that's a statistical average in Canada for the last 34 years. And the United States, Britain, Australia, New Zealand all have the same illiteracy levels. So not really being really good at reading and having a high literacy level is not the norm, right? And it's really weird when that sinks in and you do some research on illiteracy levels. You go, oh my God, right? We've got this method that we've been teaching for centuries that only actually really works for about 30% of the population. Everybody else begins to fail more and more and more. And what Ron has done is also discovered what's at the root cause of learning disabilities and found an easier way to teach very small children how to read. And reading was invented by adults for adults. It was never intended to be given to children. We're trying to get children to do something that brains aren't ready to do yet. Okay? And I don't think, generally speaking, education really understands that. I think some people do, some people don't. It's such a mixed bag, but that's not public knowledge, those statistics. Well, it's not common. It's public, but it's not common knowledge. So,
yeah, so Carl, if you feel like we're doing something that maybe isn't appropriate for children's brains by trying to get them to learn to read so early, what do we do with that? I mean, right,
yeah,
if we're hearing things like 75% of the kids aren't hitting benchmark, at what point do we go, maybe the benchmarks are wrong?
Yeah, they are. The benchmarks are wrong. Yeah.
Which, Patty, I'm totally right there with you. That's why I could never really have a public school job, because I didn't understand everything about Davis years ago, but I got this paradigm that we're talking about. I got it, that the typical way of teaching kids to read and how young we expect them to do it,
right,
isn't right, just is not realistic. It's not appropriate. And I got that so long ago. It's like, I can't go out in school and do what these people expect me to do. So I've always kind of worked on the fringes or in little private alternative settings or whatever, done my own thing, because I was just like, yeah, you can't make me do that. I know it's not right.
So I think
sorry, I was just gonna say, if you're saying they should be reading at grade level, how do we square that then? If we're saying that we think the grade level idea is maybe not serving the way it ought to.
Yeah, so so at a certain point, Davis stops, right? So Davis comes along here, at a certain point it stops and all the other issues take over. And as soon as you start talking about them, you're talking about politics, money, people's opinion. You start getting into conversations that a lot of Davis facilitators want to stay out of because they are those things, right? Or you start arguing over method. One thing that's very common, I got it recently, is somebody said, show me what was it? How did they word it? They said, show me the independent study that proves Davis works. And I said, great, I will, but I don't need to, because all I need to do is show you the illiteracy rates in Canada. Right? I don't need to prove it works because yours isn't working. So it's not that it doesn't work. So when you look at the numbers, and these are general numbers over if you go on Statistics Canada, they they studied literacy rates over 4 years. I think it was 87, 2003, 2006, and 2012. And every year they just vary by a little bit, but the average is about 20% illiteracy. The lowest it was 16%, I think, and the highest was like 22% one year. And this was a study done with 16 to 65-year-olds, so 50-year span, and it was 23,000 adults was the sampling group. So when we do research with kids with reading and sort of evidence-based programs, they're only done with 150, 75 kids, and then we do this research-based phonics work. We say, well, look, it works because there's some improvement, so it must work for everybody. But you know, that when someone goes to school for 10 years, when they come out the other end, that's whether it's worked or not. So this was an independent study of 16 to 65-year-olds that showed that about 20% are illiterate, about another 20% are semi-literate, so they can read way below grade level. The largest group was 33%, and they could read at grade 10. What that means is that 33%, the government says, well, this is our national average, where if you can read at about grade 10, you can function well in society. You can get a driver's license, you can join the army, you can get a mortgage, you can read your credit card statement, you can read basic instructions, so you can go get a job, right? But then the next group, the highest literacy level, was grade 12 to university level, and that averages about 27 to 30% of the population. So that's really what, you know, 100 years of teaching these methods, that's what it's produced. And that's not the educator's fault. That's not a teacher's fault. That's not any blame on anybody. It's just because they only have been really understanding the brain for the last 40 years, because MRI scans are, I think the earliest MRI scan was 1979. So we've only 40 years of been able to look at a live brain and do all the research on live brains for 40 years, but we've been teaching people to read for 3,000 years, 5,000 years. So it's just a sort of a misunderstanding, I think. And then you get into the politics of, well, people either don't want to spend the money on public education, and people don't understand how being disoriented and all of these things. So it's a compounding problem. But it works for society, right? So the school system basically delivers what society wants. We want A students, B students, C students, D students, and we need F students. We need F students to do all the jobs that no one really wants to do. Okay. So that's the sad thing. So that's the negative side. So let's end on a positive, okay? Yeah. The positive side is when you do Davis, you change the direction of your child's life. Okay, that's what happens. So I really admire parents when they do Davis, because they're really choosing to say, I'm going to change the direction of my child's life from a failure to the biggest success that they can be, because they need to be able to read at grade level to function well. And at grade level is leaving school, reading at grade 12, simply and easily. And being able to focus, not having medication, and being able to go on and do whatever they want to do. So to all you parents that are doing it, well done.
Okay. I think this is probably a good spot to end. And Carl, thank you so much for giving your time. And I'm so glad you guys all showed up and came and spent your Saturday morning with us. And I will see many of you soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Carl.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Have a great weekend. Appreciate it.
Bye.